There's a brutal truth. Most people don't want to face the future doesn't slow down just because you're not ready. Life doesn't pause for your doubts, your fears, or your excuses. Opportunities won't wait until you feel comfortable, and the world isn't holding a spot for you while you figure things out. Every single day, the clock is ticking, and whether you act or not, the future is moving forward. You can spend your time waiting for the perfect moment, but that moment will never come because perfection is an illusion. What matters is the decision to move, to act, to take a step forward even when the path isn't fully lit. The people who create extraordinary lives aren't the ones who waited until they had it all figured out. They're the ones who jumped in the middle of uncertainty and built their readiness along the way. You've been told to wait until the right time, to prepare until you feel ready, to get all your ducks in a row before you move. That's the lie that keeps people stuck for decades. The perfect moment is an illusion, a mirage that keeps moving further away the closer you think you get to it. Life doesn't pause for you to figure it out. The clock doesn't slow down because you're uncertain. While you're waiting for the stars to align, someone else is out there making moves, taking chances, and claiming the opportunities you're hoping will still be there when you're finally ready. You have to understand starting now doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It means you're willing to figure it out as you go. It's not about having a perfect plan. It's about having the courage to take the first step without knowing exactly what's on the other side. Every great success story starts with a moment where someone said, "I'm going to start today." Not when they were confident, not when they had all the skills, not when the fear was gone. They started with the fear still in their chest and their hands shaking. They started because they understood that the pain of waiting was worse than the fear of moving. Think about this. The opportunities that could change your life are often hidden behind doors you can only open by moving toward them. And you can't open them from where you're standing now. The more you wait, the more those doors close, and sometimes they never open again. You don't get a replay of today. This moment right here is a currency. You can either spend it on hesitation or invest it in progress. Waiting feels safe, but it's silently robbing you of momentum, and momentum is what turns small actions into unstoppable force. Most people waste years overthinking, trying to plan for every scenario, terrified of making a mistake. But here's the truth: you will make mistakes, you will fail, you will get it wrong sometimes, but you'll also learn, adjust, and grow stronger. Starting before you're ready forces you to develop resilience, resourcefulness, and adaptability. 3 things that no amount of preparation can teach you. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, and take all the courses, but until you step into the arena, you're just a spectator in your own life. The reason people cling to preparation is because it gives them the illusion of progress without the risk of action. You feel like you're doing something, but deep down, you know you're avoiding the leap. That's why so many people get stuck. They're addicted to the comfort of preparation because it shields them from the discomfort of action. But the real growth, the real transformation, only happens when you're out there doing the thing, not thinking about doing it. Every day you hesitate, you're reinforcing the habit of hesitation. And habits get stronger the more you feed them. You can train yourself to act decisively, just like you can train yourself to stall. The difference is in the choices you make today. If you want to break the cycle of waiting, you have to make a move right now, even if it's small, even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy. It's not about taking a giant leap every time. It's about breaking the seal on action and proving to yourself that you don't need permission, you don't need certainty, and you don't need every detail to be perfect before you begin. You build confidence by acting, not by waiting for confidence to magically appear. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless, didn't start fearless. They started scared and became fearless because they acted in the face of fear. The world doesn't stop spinning because you're unsure. Opportunities don't freeze in place until you're comfortable. If you keep waiting for the right time, you're going to look back one day and realize the right time was every time you let pass while telling yourself you weren't ready. Most people live their entire lives reacting to the world instead of creating their world. They let circumstances, other people's opinions, and random events dictate how they feel, what they do, and what they believe is possible. That's why they stay stuck in the same patterns year after year. The truth is, you can't control everything that happens around you, but you can control how you respond, and that changes everything. The second you take ownership of your life, you stop being a passenger and you start being the driver. You've got to realize that waiting for life to change on its own is like waiting for a ship that's never coming. If you're standing on the shore hoping something will rescue you, you're handing your future over to chance. Instead, you need to start building your own boat. That means taking full responsibility for your results, your emotions, and your growth. It means no longer blaming your past, your parents, your boss, your ex, or the economy for where you are. The moment you blame something outside yourself, you give away your power, and without that power, you'll never create lasting change. Taking ownership isn't about guilt or self. Blame, it's about recognizing that if you have the ability to respond, you have the ability to change. When you own your decisions, you own your outcomes. That's when life stops feeling like it's happening to you and starts feeling like it's happening for you. You become the architect instead of the tenant. You stop being someone who's just surviving and start being someone who's deliberately building. The hard part is that ownership requires radical honesty. You have to be willing to face the truth about the choices you've made and the habits you've built. That's uncomfortable because it's easier to point fingers than it is to look in the mirror. But the mirror is where transformation begins. If you're not where you want to be, it's not because life singled you out to suffer, it's because somewhere along the line, you accepted less than you're capable of, or you kept waiting for someone else to fix it. When you finally get sick of your own excuses, that's when you'll start making real progress. Once you decide to own your life, something powerful happens. You stop waiting for motivation to show up. You understand that motivation is the result of action, not the cause of it. You start moving even when you don't feel like it, because you know that action fuels momentum, and momentum changes everything. You stop needing everything to be perfect before you begin, because you realize you can adjust as you go. You stop needing approval because your self-worth comes from knowing you're doing the work. Ownership also means you stop playing small. You stop choosing comfort over growth, because you know that comfort is where dreams go to die. You start taking calculated risks, because you understand that risk is the price of progress. You stop waiting for permission to chase the life you want, because you know no one's coming to hand it to you. You give yourself permission and you take the shot. And yes, you will stumble, you will fail. You will make choices that don't work out the way you hoped. But when you own your life, failure stops being a dead end and becomes a detour. It's feedback. It's information. It's a lesson you wouldn't have learned if you hadn't been in motion. People who own their lives don't fear failure, they fear regret. They know that looking back and realizing they never really tried is far worse than any setback they could experience along the way. The more you practice ownership, the more you realize that life isn't about waiting for perfect conditions, it's about creating the conditions you want. You stop wasting energy wishing things were different and start using that energy to make them different. You stop seeing problems as roadblocks and start seeing them as puzzles to solve. You stop asking why me and start asking what can I do about it. That shift alone will change the trajectory of your life because it puts you back in the position of power. When you own your life, you understand that no one is coming to save you, and that's not bad news, that's the best news you'll ever hear. It means you're not dependent on anyone else's timeline, approval, or resources. It means the only person you have to convince is yourself. It means your future is in your hands, and you're capable of shaping it starting right now. Most people think they need to feel ready before they take action. They believe they have to wait until the timing is perfect, until the fear goes away, until they know exactly how everything will play out. But the truth is, that moment of feeling ready almost never comes. If you wait for it, you'll be stuck in the same place years from now, wondering why nothing has changed. Readiness isn't something you wait for, it's something you create by moving forward, even when you don't feel prepared. The mind loves to trick you into thinking you need more time, more knowledge, more confidence before you can begin. It's a lie that keeps you safe, but it also keeps you small. Confidence doesn't come from standing still and overthinking, it comes from doing the thing you're afraid of. Every time you take action, you send yourself a message, I can handle this. And the more you act, the more proof you give yourself that you are capable. That's how readiness is built, through experience, not hesitation. When you wait for the perfect moment, you're really waiting for a life without risk. That life doesn't exist. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be things you can't predict. But if you take action now, you gain the one thing that actually makes uncertainty less scary: momentum. Momentum is your greatest ally because it turns fear into focus. Once you're in motion, your energy shifts. Your attention goes from "what if I fail" to "what's my next step." That shift alone can break years of paralysis. You have to understand that your future is not holding its breath, waiting for you to feel ready. Opportunities don't sit around indefinitely. The door you see open today may not be there tomorrow. People who succeed don't have more courage than anyone else, they just act faster. They make the decision to start before they have all the answers. They trust themselves to figure it out along the way. That's the difference between people who build the life they want and people who watch from the sidelines. Fear will always whisper that you're not prepared, that you're not qualified, that you're going to embarrass yourself. You can listen to that voice, or you can take action anyway. Every time you choose action, you weaken fear's grip. You start building a new identity, one where you're not the person who waits, but the person who moves. That identity becomes self-reinforcing. The more you act, the more you see yourself as a person who acts. That's how you stop overthinking and start creating results. Think about all the times you've done something new. Before you began, you probably felt uncertain, maybe even terrified. But once you got into it, you realized you could handle it. That's the pattern. You grow into readiness through doing, not before doing. The action comes first, the confidence follows. If you flip that order, you'll spend your whole life waiting. Another reason people wait for readiness is because they want to avoid mistakes. But mistakes are part of the process. They're not a sign you're failing, they're proof you're in the arena. You can't improve something you never start. Every mistake you make gives you clarity you couldn't have gotten by just thinking about it. The most successful people aren't the ones who avoid mistakes. They're the ones who make them faster, learn from them, and keep moving. When you stop waiting for readiness, you stop living in theory and start living in reality. Theory is safe. It's all in your head. Reality is where you take the messy, imperfect steps that actually create change. And here's the thing, reality rewards action. It rewards the person who sends the email, makes the call, takes the meeting, launches the idea. Life responds to movement. The universe meets you halfway when it sees you're serious. You don't need the perfect plan to start. You don't need the perfect mood. You don't need to feel fearless. You just need to take the first step with what you have right now. Because once you're moving, everything changes: your perspective, your energy, your opportunities. And with each step, you're not just moving toward your future, you're becoming the kind of person who can handle it when you get there. Most people spend their lives waiting for circumstances to change before they start building the life they want. They wait for someone to give them permission, for the situation to become easier, for the path to become clearer. But the truth is, your circumstances don't change first, you do. You can't control the economy, the people around you, or the random challenges life throws your way. But you can control the way you show up every single day. And when you start changing your habits, your mindset, and your actions, the world around you begins to shift in response. It's easy to think that external situations have to improve before you can take action. You tell yourself, when I have more money, I'll start that business. Or when I have more time, I'll focus on my health. Or when they treat me better, I'll feel happier. But that's backwards. You don't wait for the right conditions to live differently. You create the right conditions by living differently. When you raise your standards, when you demand more of yourself, when you start acting like the person you want to become, you pull new opportunities into your life. You can't let other people's choices dictate your growth. Some people in your life may never change. They may keep making the same mistakes, repeating the same toxic patterns, resisting the same lessons. If you're waiting for them to evolve before you take your next step, you'll be stuck forever. You can care about them without making your future dependent on them. The moment you shift your focus from trying to control what they do to controlling what you do, you reclaim your power. That's when progress starts happening, even if they stay exactly where they are. Every single day, you have a decision to make. Are you going to react to your circumstances, or are you going to create them? Reaction keeps you stuck in the same loop. Creation breaks the loop, and creation starts with small, deliberate actions. It's not about making massive changes overnight, it's about stacking small wins that build momentum. You start by doing the things you've been putting off, making the calls you've been afraid to make, showing up to the workouts you've been skipping, putting in the work even when you don't feel like it. Over time, those actions compound and suddenly, you're living in a different reality. You also have to understand that challenges are not roadblocks. They are the training ground for who you're becoming. Too many people see a problem and think it's a sign they should stop. But challenges aren't the universe telling you no. They're the test to see if you're serious about your vision. They're the weight you have to lift to get stronger. Every time you push through something hard, you're building the muscle of resilience. That resilience is what will carry you through the next level of growth. Without it, you'll crumble at the first sign of pressure. If you keep waiting for life to get easier, you're going to be waiting a long time. Life doesn't get easier, you get stronger. And the only way to get stronger is to step into situations that challenge you. That's where you discover what you're truly capable of. It's uncomfortable, but so is staying stuck. The difference is that one kind of discomfort leads to growth, and the other keeps you trapped. You have to decide which pain you're willing to live with. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this?" The moment you start looking for ways to use your circumstances, good or bad, you take the driver's seat of your life. You stop being a victim of what's happening and start becoming the architect of what's next. That's when you realize that even the setbacks were actually setups for something greater. Your environment will always try to pull you back to the level you've been living at. Friends, habits, routines, and even your own thinking will try to keep you comfortable. But comfort is not where your future lies. Your future lives on the other side of discomfort, discipline, and deliberate action. And the only way to get there is to start making choices that align with the person you want to become, not the person you've been. Most people underestimate the power of taking action before they feel completely ready. They think readiness is a feeling that will arrive like a wave that one day they'll wake up with no fear, no uncertainty, no doubt, and that's when they'll finally move. But readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's a choice to step forward despite the fear, to act in the middle of uncertainty, to take the first step even when you can't see the entire path. Waiting to feel ready is the most effective way to ensure you never actually begin. The truth is, action creates readiness, not the other way around. Every small step you take builds confidence, and that confidence feeds the next step. You don't get confidence from reading, thinking, or wishing, you get it from doing. That's why so many people get stuck in the cycle of overthinking and planning. They confuse preparation with progress. Preparation is valuable, but without action, it's just another form of procrastination dressed up to look productive. When you look at anyone who has achieved something extraordinary, you'll find they didn't have all the answers when they started. They took messy, imperfect action. They learned along the way, adjusting and adapting as they went. They didn't wait until they had all the resources, all the skills, or all the approval. They started with what they had, where they were, and trusted themselves to figure out the rest. And because they moved, opportunities began to appear that never would have shown up if they'd stayed still. There's a trap that many people fall into, the belief that their current limitations are permanent. They think, I can't do this because I don't have the money, the connections, the time, the education. But what they don't realize is that taking action often creates the very resources they think they're missing. When you start, you attract people who want to help, you discover shortcuts you couldn't see before, and you open doors that only open to those already in motion. You have to stop measuring your ability to act based on your feelings. Feelings are inconsistent. Some days you'll feel motivated, some days you won't. If your action depends on motivation, you'll never build momentum. Instead, commit to showing up no matter how you feel. Discipline is more reliable than motivation. When you train yourself to act regardless of emotion, you break free from the roller coaster of starting and stopping. Fear will always be present when you're stepping into something bigger. It's a signal that you're moving beyond your comfort zone, not a sign to stop. The mistake most people make is waiting for the fear to disappear. But fear doesn't vanish before you act, it diminishes as you act. The more you move forward, the more you prove to yourself that you can handle it. Every step you take turns fear into fuel. You also need to understand that clarity is a byproduct of movement. You're not going to have the perfect plan in your head before you begin. The act of moving, trying, failing, and adjusting is what reveals the right path. Standing still gives you nothing to refine. But when you're in motion, you're constantly gathering feedback that makes your next step clearer. Think about the moments in your life when you were thrown into something you didn't feel ready for: a new job, a challenge, a responsibility. At first, it probably felt overwhelming. But once you were in it, you figured things out faster than you thought you could. That's because action activates a part of you that sitting still never will. You discover skills you didn't know you had, strength you didn't realize you possessed, and resilience you didn't think you were capable of. This is why you have to treat every moment as a chance to move forward, even if you can only take a small step. One phone call, one workout, one conversation, one piece of progress. These small, consistent moves add up. Over time, they create an unstoppable force of momentum that carries you into opportunities you couldn't have imagined at the start. The people who succeed are not the ones who waited until they were ready. They are the ones who acted, stumbled, learned, and kept going. They didn't let fear, uncertainty, or imperfection stop them. They understood that readiness isn't a prerequisite for action, it's the result of it. Most people think they need to see the whole staircase before they take the first step. They want to know exactly how things will unfold, what obstacles will appear, and how they'll overcome them before they even begin. But life doesn't work that way. You're not given the full blueprint because you're not supposed to have it. If you could see every twist, turn, and challenge ahead of time, you'd talk yourself out of starting. The truth is, growth happens in the unknown. It's in the uncertainty that you discover who you really are and what you're capable of. There's a part of you that already knows the next step you need to take. You've felt it tugging at you, whispering to you, pushing you forward. But you've been waiting for guarantees, for the fear to vanish, for someone to come along and tell you it's all going to work out. That's not how it works. The guarantee comes from you, from your decision to commit no matter what happens. You don't need to know the outcome to begin. You need to trust that you'll handle whatever comes next. When you commit without knowing the full path, you activate a part of your mind that's designed to figure things out under pressure. You start seeing possibilities that weren't visible when you were standing still. You attract opportunities because you're in motion. You meet people you never would have crossed paths with if you'd been waiting in the safety zone. It's like the universe only reveals the next chapter after you've proven you're willing to turn the page. The reality is, the need for certainty is one of the biggest killers of dreams. You convince yourself that once you have enough information, enough skill, enough money, enough confidence, then you'll start. But that moment never comes, because as soon as one uncertainty is solved, another one takes its place. It's a trap. If you want to create real change, you have to move forward while the doubts are still there. Courage isn't acting without fear, it's acting despite fear. Think back to the most significant transformations in your life. Chances are they didn't happen because you had every detail mapped out. They happened because you stepped into something unknown and figured it out as you went. You may have stumbled, failed, or taken detours, but each of those moments gave you the exact experience you needed to move forward stronger. Without the uncertainty, you never would have built the resourcefulness that defines who you are today. You have to stop believing that the unknown is the enemy. The unknown is your training ground. It forces you to adapt, to learn fast, to become more creative. When you step into it, you stop relying on the comfortable patterns that keep you stagnant. You begin to think bigger, take bolder action, and develop skills that only pressure and challenge can bring out. This is where real growth lies, not in the familiar, but in the places where you're forced to expand. It's also important to realize that momentum is built in the act of moving, not in the act of planning. You could spend months, even years, trying to design the perfect route to your goal, but nothing compares to the clarity and energy that comes from being in motion. Once you start, even with imperfect action, you create ripples that begin to shape your path. Those ripples turn into waves, and those waves start carrying you toward opportunities you couldn't have imagined when you were standing still. Some people will watch from the sidelines their whole lives, telling themselves they're just waiting for the right time. But the right time isn't a date on a calendar. The right time is the moment you decide to start, even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain, even if you have no idea what's on the other side. The second you choose to act without needing every answer is the second you start creating the life you've been imagining.